persona con conocimientos.
Con conocimiento y con experiencia como nuestro abogado John Mitchell. Pues John, queremos agradecerte por habernos acompañado el día de hoy. Nosotros vamos cerrando. Recuerden que si usted tiene temas puntuales sobre sus compañías, cómo abrir compañías, cómo cerrar compañías, cómo solucionar problemas con el IRS, aquí está nuestro abogado John Mitchell, que él les va a dar toda la información, les va a echar la mano y les va a ayudar a solucionar los problemas que ustedes tienen en sus compañías. Yo soy Gustavo Soto, me voy despidiendo por el día de hoy y por supuesto queremos agradecerles por habernos acompañado una vez más desde aquí, desde Houston, desde la ciudad espacial, en Now Media Televisión, la primera cadena bilingüe de los Estados Unidos. No olviden, por favor, seguirnos en todas nuestras redes sociales, plataformas digitales. Compartan este contenido para que llegue a más personas. Un abrazo y bendiciones.
This has been a Now Media.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Real Estate Insights. I'm your host, Andrew Glisson. Appreciate you guys tuning in every single week. This show is geared towards introducing you all to different people within multiple sectors in the real estate continuum. So on today's show, we're going to have a couple of folks to introduce you to, several people that are in short-term rentals, that are real estate agents, to primarily folks that buy and sell in HOAs, a real estate developer. Got a lot going on. One of the things I wanted to mention before we kick off interviewing our guests and talking to some of them was that there's been some absolutely monumental news in the world of real estate with the National Association of Realtors in the settlement, basically outlining that MLS commissions have got to be basically not included on the MLS from July forward. So a lot of people said that this was going to be the biggest news in the world. This is going to change the game for real estate agents. And it really, if you listen to the experts, may not change things very much. The people who won out of this lawsuit were, big surprise, the attorneys. So everybody's looking for a way to sue people, but the only people that generally win in that regard are attorneys. So congratulations to the attorneys. But it sounds like there's going to be business as usual in the world of real estate. Buyers need representation. And that's the general theme that you hear from people, is that this is the biggest transaction that a lot of people make in their entire lives. And so you need representation from a buyer's perspective. Look, I buy homes, I sell homes, I flip homes. And it is true that a lot of buyers, when they're buying a piece of real estate, they don't know what to ask. There's a lot of things that you need a real estate agent to help you through as you're making decisions on these homes. And they can save you a lot of money in the long run, just from inspections, giving you little tips and little tricks along the way from a financing perspective, things to ask the seller for. And so you guys should consider using buyer's agents if you are in the world of real estate trying to buy a house. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and we're going to start introducing you guys to a lot of smart people in the real estate world. Stay tuned. We'll see you in just a minute.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We've joining me as our first guest on the show today is Wynn Willis, and Wynn is the head of development for a family office called Bull Development, and in the Baltimore area. So, Wynn, first of all, welcome to the show. Our hearts go out. Obviously, there's a massive tragedy in the Baltimore area, where you guys are. So, I mean, obviously, our hearts go out to everybody, in your community, and so we're definitely sorry to hear that, but. We're glad to have you on the show talking about real estate, talking about real estate development. Just straight out of the gates, why don't you tell us, how did you get into, real estate and real estate development, for Bull Development? What kind of led you to where you're at now?
Well, I was extremely lucky. My father was a real estate developer when I was a kid. I was 9 years old, and when he was doing his largest development, which was called Hillsdale Heights, which is still here in Baltimore. And actually, he still lives in that same neighborhood.
Nice.
That he was built. That was 26 different homes, put in all the infrastructure. So I was the kid running around trying to help, but I was probably more of a nuisance than a help. So after college, I wanted to go work at the State Department. That didn't work out for me. I guess it was too much school. And I ended up using, what I thought would be the skills that were necessary for that in Baltimore. And I took over our appraisal company. I took over our development company, and I've been running that for about 7 years.
So you guys have done $100 million worth of developments in multifamily, mixed use. What is kind of, if I asked, you Wynn, like, what is the thing that you like to do the most? What would a project look like? What's the project avatar for Bull?
I would say right now it's mixed use development. I think our ethos has been community first. And now that is like a starting point for us just to do something really important, which is just to listen to what people want. Yep. And once we do that, then the mixed use part is even, because everybody doesn't want apartments, but people do want vibrant communities. And apartments in retail or with office allows for you to create a vibrant community, and then that attracts residents throughout. So that's our project avatar right now. Really, we're between 8 and right now 287 units. But we want to stay, right now in the smaller unit range. So nothing over 200 and, really nothing below 25 right now. And that would be what we're doing going forward for the next 5 or 10 years.
Makes sense. So tell me how the project mix has changed from before COVID to after COVID in terms of, office mix and office, contribution to that development. Has office gone down in terms of the total share of the project?
Well, we tried to stay away from office since before that, and we were scared of retail as well. So we were looking at how can we actually, at first try to get community organizations in the building. But now that things and people seem to want to come into and eat in restaurants, especially communities that we're in,
yep.
We have started to incorporate that a lot more. Hey, can we make our spaces a little bit bigger? Can we be able to create different experiences like a rooftop decks that we can kind of program with the restaurants on the first floor, but then also for the residents. So I think our mix has just been how do we use the space that we do have a little bit better, and then how do we program it as we move forward for the next 5 or 10 years.
Man, I love mixed use. Anytime that my family and I go travel, we're looking for a place like that that's got just a lot of retail, a lot of restaurants, a lot of fun things to do, walkable community. So it sounds like you guys were on kind of the leading edge of that development, because mixed use hasn't been around that long. Even in the bigger cities, it was like multifamily apartment building, retail, but pulling all that together makes a ton of sense. So how do you? But there's also a lot of more. There's also much more competition out there now because a lot of people are trying to jump on the bandwagon. So how does a legacy company that's done it for a long time, $100 million worth of developments, how do you stay relevant? How do you compete? There's a lot of people fighting for those restaurants, a lot of people fighting for those the people who want to live in those apartments. So how do you compete with all that?
I think I think it's important for us to not be as correlated to everyone in the market And real estate's really a, follow the leader type game, but somebody has to be the leader. So what we tend to do is identify areas where we're not one-to-one correlated with everybody in the market. So we'll take neighborhoods that have similar characteristics to neighborhoods that we like, especially here in Baltimore, and we'll just transplant those and say, how many boxes does this new neighborhood check? And if we can check those boxes, then we're able to move into the neighborhood. So we tend to be the first or the second in a neighborhood, and then we just try to do it better than everybody else.
Man, so how much, opportunity in the Baltimore area is there for, some of these buildings that you guys are putting up? How do you, what kind of boxes are there that you're checking? Are you moving out? Are you doing infill, within the urban environment? How does that look?
Well, everything we're doing is infill, right? So there's a massive amount of opportunity. So imagine you have a place just as big as New York City, with a tenth of the people, but the same land and just massive amount of opportunity, but all the same characteristics from airports to highways to just the size of buildings that you can do in similar to way, but it is also larger and bigger than Miami, right? And you have your proximity to DC and you have the government as your biggest, and we know our government's not going out of business anytime soon. So you have that as your backbone. So when you look at it from that standpoint, Baltimore is probably one of the most attractive places on the East Coast that hasn't been tapped yet from, institutional dollars. And I think the reason why is because you actually need real local expertise here, just like you need in New York. So I think for us, I think we look at what is the land cost basis in particular areas, and then what can we do as far as zoning and density in that area as well? And do those zoning and densities match match the characteristics of where majority of development has happened, whether it be in our downtown area, our Fed Hill area, in other areas, which I call the Fab Five. If we have those similar characteristics, then it is an attractive proposition for investors just with higher return. So our goal is to outperform because we are smaller and we're not institutional. So to outperform, we can't do what everybody else does.
Makes sense. And are you guys raising money? How does the capital sourcing, happen for these types of projects? I mean, I assume that you're getting financing. Are you syndicating some of the initial equity that goes into the development?
Yeah, I think we've been extremely lucky. Having an appraisal business allowed for us to have operating capital to put towards purchasing a property and doing some of the pre-development work that we have had so far. So I think the bigger thing is that how do we supplement the gap that we may need? And the number one way that we've done that is by getting friends and family and syndicating capital. We've had for two of our projects, one that just recently got CHAP approval, which is a historic approval here. We had just a partner. Me and a gentleman went to high school together, and we came together and did a partnership. He brought some capital. We brought some capital and our expertise. And so it's actually smaller than we thought. We have about 55 total investors throughout all our projects that we currently have. But a lot of that stuff, especially with some of our larger and more impactful projects, are purely funded by operations from appraising and our family.
That's great. When is it, do you raise capital in a fund basis or is it per project?
We've been raising per project. I think the fund business is it's a business within itself.
Yeah.
And it's a tough business. And I think the bigger thing for us is we want to make sure that people are aligned with us. So we would rather do it where we're doing more of a joint venture, like I mentioned with one project, or we're syndicating capital for people who believe not only in the return profile that's there, but also in the mission and what we do as far as curating communities for the long term.
Man, I love the mission. You want to, contribute to the community, but give people a fun place to live and work and hang out. So tell us about, your newest development that's hot off the presses, the historical thing. What does that look like?
Yeah. So that's a 25 unit mixed use development. I have about 29. Will probably be, we're helping to curate the hospitality right now. What we wanted to, it's on West Baltimore Street. So being a kid from Baltimore, growing up in Baltimore, it's like a dream come true to put a building on the namesake of the city.
Yeah.
And we, just got that approval. We'll be in permit, hopefully by, God willing, August, and then we should be starting to break ground at the end of this year. We've had, even though interest rates are where they are, numbers still work, and we've been able to get financing that's super attractive. Got two CDFIs that are willing to syndicate the loan. So I think what we're trying to do is continue to find a good mix of where the financing comes from, where we can, how far can we push rents, and then being able to not only execute on the project, but make sure that the community stays connected to it and give them something that they'll love. So hopefully the restaurant that will be on the first floor will feel like a second home to people in the neighborhood of Union and Franklin Square.
That's amazing. Tell our viewers, you used a real estate acronym, CDFI. Tell our viewers what that means.
It's a community development financial institution. So they're nonprofits that finance projects throughout the country, but they tend to have cheaper financing than a bank, and they have a lot more flexible terms to get the mission of whatever their mandate is done. A lot of times that's affordable housing, but it's also community development. So even though we're doing market rate development, it's still community development in a way. It hits on their points.
That's awesome. Wynn, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, this has been really fun talking to you. I hope you'll come back sometime soon. Always like to hear about what's going on in different parts of the country. So thanks for coming on the show, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. Everybody, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Have you ever had to hire multiple contractors? It is a daunting task that takes a lot of management time and impacts the core business or the company, the time you spend with your loved ones. At Texas Home Property Solutions, you can count on a responsible company that can tackle all your general contractor needs. Electricity, painting, remodeling, plumbing, air conditioning, and roofing. Hire us and forget it. With over 20 years of experience, Texas Home Property Solution will deliver your project on time and within budget, with the high level of quality and integrity, no matter the size or complexity. If you are a company, a government institution, or an individual who needs a general contractor, you need Texas Home Property Solution. Take a decisive step and call us today for a free consultation.
All right, everybody. Shannon St. Val's back on the show, short-term rental manager, owner and manager, actually, of short-term rentals. Shannon, how are you?
Doing great, doing great.
Good. Shannon, you're one of my favorite people to talk to about this stuff, because I think short-term rentals is like, I mean, that's what everybody wants to talk about and where they want to be in real estate right now. And it's one of the last places, at least at the moment, where you can get pretty good returns if you do it right. But the question is really, how to effectively market that property, because there's tons of them out there. I mean, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee today, and there's 2,000 short-term rentals in our local, area. So how do you market that rental property to get to the top of the list that people can come? I mean, what's the strategy in that?
There's lots of strategy, but I would say number one, and I think a lot of people get this wrong, is photos. And I know that seems simple, but it's like, it's what the guests see first, right? And so people think they can just go in and take their iPhone, and just randomly click it. It's not even straight and the lighting's off. I've seen literally price difference of maybe $50 to $100 a night, even more in some cases, because the photos are not professional photos. So if I could tell anyone of marketing their property, getting high quality professional photos, invest that, and it'll help keep the guests coming in. Yeah.
So I can tell, you're somebody that's, very detail oriented and you pay attention to the details a lot like I do. What do you, when you're interviewing photographers and, you tell the guests that are watching the show, when they're looking for a photographer, what are some of the details that, you need to convey to them to know if you've got the right person taking those pictures?
Yeah. So regular folks that do headshots or business photos are not necessarily the best person to do real estate photos because they're very specific. Also with short-term rentals, you need maybe some close-in feature photos, like a picture of the coffee maker, a picture of, there's a few, you photograph a little bit differently. So trying to find someone with real estate photography experience is very, very helpful. And typically I provide my photographers with a shot list. Like, hey, make sure you get all this and make sure you get the angles.
Nice.
Make sure you capture the entire room so the guests can get the perspective of how it feels to be in the space.
Yep. You shot list. That's the word I was looking for. So you saved me on that. Thanks for saying that, by the way. What about 3D tours, walkthroughs, videos? Do you do anything like that?
We do, but unfortunately, Airbnb and some of the other sites don't allow you to put links on your site. You can, but the guests won't be able to see it until after they book. We include it in our guest book, so it is helpful so they know, what they're going to come into, especially for big homes, and you need to know the layout and what room is connected where. It's really important to spend a little extra cash and make sure you have a floor plan. And then pro tip, sometimes the floor plans are included in your appraisal report. So you can instead of creating a new one, you can sometimes pull it off of an appraisal report. So nice.
And obviously the home is staged at that point. Everything's already in there. So you're trying to give that guest experience. Like this is what you can expect, I guess, when you come in. What are the other marketing, tips? Is it really kind of all about pictures? What about the listing description? Do you spend a lot of time on that? Or do you have a short listing description, a long listing description? What's the strategy there?
So we figured out that listings that have more in their description and captions with their photos actually perform better. And I think we get boosted up in the algorithm for it. So there's a really good tip to keep in mind. So taking some time to put those descriptions in. Also, you don't want, like, if there's any special nuances or if it's subject to noise or weird railroad track near the property, you should really disclose some of those things so you don't run into getting bad reviews because you didn't properly disclose what the issues were of the property.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Listing descriptions really matter.
Yeah. What about some of the amenities that somebody could add in? Do things like, cribs make a difference? High chairs?
Yeah. We tend to provide pack and play. So they're kind of like cribs, but a baby could kind of sleep in it. They're about $50 and they're worth putting it in because people with family don't want to have to carry something like that on their trip. So being able to provide that is important. Also simple amenities, like providing good quality coffee, tea, good quality shampoo. Another thing we found is that houses with hot tubs perform really well in terms of like an amenity. And this is a splurge amenity if you can one in year round, and you can get a really good return on investment as opposed to putting in a pool. So a hot tub, who would have known?
Yeah. Smart. Yeah, just have to find somebody to do the chemicals on that. So, but I guess, there's people out there that can help. What about, from a review perspective, like you mentioned reviews a second ago, they can either make you or break you. So how do you improve and make sure that, you're getting the best reviews that you possibly can?
Yeah, guest reviews are important. And so ensuring that you get a really good review is a tip that we tell people is once the guest checks in, immediately follow up with a message and say, hey, are there any issues with the property right when they come in? So you can go ahead and step in front of a negative experience. So you don't wait to the very end to get a bad review. And then also just asking for a positive review. Some people just fail to say, hey, at the end of their stay, really loved having you. Would you be willing to give me a 5-star review? And it helps. Yeah,
that's true. Asking for it. A lot of people don't do that. Does every single Airbnb, 5-star, you better get a 5-star. 4 is considered bad, right? Does every other platform or I guess channel, VRBO, the other ones, is that the same? Is it the same way that Airbnb treats that, 5-star review?
Every platform is different. Like, for example, booking.com has like a 10-star ranking, but they all matter in the sense of, yeah, they do it slightly different. Like there's different categories that you can rate a host on versus one platform to the other, but it's all the same where you need to strive for that 5-star. We do have a magnet that we put on the fridge because people tend to rate the Airbnb rankings, or let's say short-term rental rankings, are different than what you'd rate like a restaurant. So 4 means kind of not good in the Airbnb terms. But then for a restaurant, 4 means, 4 could be great, So it's a different rating system. So we actually put a magnet on the fridge to clarify. Don't leave us a 1 just because you had one bad, I don't know, you had trouble finding the key. And then now the whole entire thing's a 1. You could, that really, really, could impact the list.
Yeah, don't hurt us. Don't hurt us with a 1-star. Give us a 5. Like, what can we do to get that 5, What, from a, just a pricing perspective, I'm kind of looping back a minute, but how do you, a short-term rental owner that's trying to, dial in the right pricing, to maximize occupancy, how do you suggest that they, set that pricing strategy to really, drive occupancy in their units?
And I really recommend you don't manually do it. We
Really?
No, I don't recommend you manually do it. I recommend using a pricing tool. Airbnb has a pricing tool built in, but there's some really good ones you can also use outside of Airbnb, like Price Labs or Wheelhouse. They just do a really good job at pulling in market data. They pull in a market demand, events, and you can kind of set rules in where you could apply discounts based on the season. So I really recommend using a pricing tool because those algorithms are a lot more sophisticated in terms of helping you come up with a good price for your market. One of the things you want to be careful about is being overpriced or being underpriced, because if you book out too soon, then that's a problem. And you want a system that will automatically adjust for you based on the reservations that are coming in. Because if all the reservations come in, you realize you're priced too low and your system doesn't automatically adjust itself because you're manually doing it, you could be losing, a lot of money because of that.
Yep. What are some things, kind of on that pricing strategy? You're at the point now where you guys manage several dozen, short-term rentals. Can you basically look at a property, the geographic location it's in, you look at it, how many rooms it is, kind of in your mind, like where this ought to be?
100%. Yeah. When you get really good, I can look at a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 6-bedroom and kind of get a sense of, but that takes time to build.
Sure.
It's not really easy.
No, can't be.
You can kind of get, but then also there's very small nuances. You'd be surprised just because, like we have a property that's like near Columbia University and it's like not as nice, but then there's one that's a little bit further away, but just the pure fact that it's a few blocks closer to Columbia University means that we're able to book out more. And you would think if you're just comparing apples to apples, you wouldn't be able, it's the same, similar property, but it's booking out more because of the location. So sometimes you just really, it's very nuanced there and knowing, that particular property and, but I can always have a range. You can kind of start understanding your range and knowing your pricing.
And then are you like, the occupancy perspective, percentage occupancy, what are you really trying to gun for? Everybody wants to be 100%, but like what's above average? What's like, a good case scenario, not best case scenario, but good case scenario, I guess.
So as professional managers, we look at market demand and we look at what the market is doing, and we try to do at least 15 to 20% better than what the market. And the reason being is because you want to, if you're being professionally managed, you should be able to beat what the average is, right?
Yeah.
But overall, you want to aim to be in that top tier. So we try to be in the top 75th or 90th percentile in every market that we're in. Obviously, things vary, but you really want to aim to beat the average, and we track that on a weekly basis to make sure we're there.
Yeah. Do you have a management, like a property management, software that helps you track those numbers?
Yeah. So we use Wheelhouse for our pricing tool, and then a designated person, a revenue manager,
Nice.
that specifically, and we meet, once or twice a week to go over pricing. Pricing is so, so important. I see a lot of
Yeah.
people great property, but don't price it correctly.
Yeah.
And that really impacts how much money they bring in. And they'll come on with me and then I'm able to bring them in an extra 30, 40% just because we're
Wow.
pricing it better. Like pricing is so important. And we spend a lot of time working on it. And I tell people it's not a set it and forget it situation.
Yeah.
Not just put the price in and you just walk away. You got to
Absolutely.
continually adjust it.
Is there anybody that has the authority, I guess, or do you guys, if you see that, we are coming up on the weekend and it's Friday and we haven't, rented this property out for the weekend, is there somebody that just is like, we're slashing this price 25% to get this thing rented? Do you have that kind of, structure?
Yeah, we do, but it's all automated. So once we're not occupied, we put it in our pricing tool, Wheelhouse, and that pretty much will say, okay, if it's not booked, we have the liberty to go all the way down to the minimum price and start tiering it every single day up until we get it booked. But you can also manually do it if you don't want to use the pricing tool, but you should still have some type of system. So you're saying, okay, I'm 1 week out. Typically people book 2 months out or a month out.
Yeah.
I need to start slashing my price and going about it systematically.
Makes sense. Well, look, Shannon, always good to talk to you. Appreciate when you come on every time. So we'll have you on the show in another couple of weeks and look forward to having this conversation again because it's a fun one that I like talking about, short-term rentals. So have a great rest of your day and we'll talk soon. We'll be right back from a commercial break soon, everybody.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Dr. Azad, welcome back to the show. Appreciate you coming back on. We've kind of in the very beginning of the show, I made an introduction of who you were. And so I wanted to kind of jump right into a topic that we kind of teed up a little bit on last week's show, which is cost segregation, which I think is one of the most powerful tools. We use it on our single family real estate portfolio. I think it's one of the most single family tools that the IRS has given real estate investors. And so let's, tell our guests that may or may not be real estate investors about cost segregation, because some of the folks that are watching the show may not even know what that means.
Well, Andrew, thank you for having me on again. And cost segregation analysis is power at your fingertips.
Yep.
And it's a free, almost get out of jail card from the federal government because it is, okay, we're going to have 100 people, investors, buy this piece of property. 100 people, we get together, we buy it. And we don't have to pay taxes because that shopping center that may have 20 stores in it has about 1,000 people working there now. The federal government gets to tax all those 1,000 people. Okay. So it's a loss leader in that we don't get to pay taxes, but they get to skim a bunch of people's taxes. So it's a legal way for us to make money, get generationally wealthy quickly through depreciation. What does that mean? We buy a property. Before I close on the property, I go out and I hire a firm and we do what's called a cost segregation analysis. They go over every aspect of that shopping center. There's a roof. A roof typically lasts 18 to 22 years if it's well maintained. There's the fascia, there's brick, there's sideboard, there's whatever material it's built out of. There's asphalt or concrete. There's the electrical, the plumbing, the pylons. There's 100, let's say 150 pieces to that building. Each of those pieces of that building age and have different lengths of life. So what that does is it figures out, think of it as a huge Excel spreadsheet that tabulates the length and the value of each piece, the length of life of each piece, and depreciates the value of it along the way. So there's some things that last, you can depreciate for 5 years because that's about the length of life. 7 years, 20 years, 39 years, because they are made of different materials and they last different lengths of time. So I can write off, okay, my investors, I send out monthly mailbox money to them. And say it's $1,000, and I can write off, $20 on the fascia, $50 on the plumbing, $80 on the light poles, $120 on the, at 5, then depending upon your length of loan, if it's an insurance company or bank, it's 5 or 7 years typically. If I'm going on a product that has, my last one is a $94 million loan from Starwood Mortgage, I'm going to take a CMBS loan, a commercial mortgage-backed security loan tied to the 10-year treasury note. I got 10 years, okay? They did me interest only. Awesome. I got 10 years in which I can depreciate stuff, meaning write stuff off against the income that it's generating.
Yep.
At about year 8.5, I start running out of some of that because all the 5 years are gone. All the 7 years are gone. Okay, but I got enough left. So I can, all that mailbox money that say $1,000 a month coming at me, I can't write off the whole thing now, but I can write off probably about 900 of it. So you still make mostly depreciable income, meaning no taxes on that which is depreciated, paid at the moment that you get the money in your pocket. Now, it is tax deferred, not tax free. But the benefit of the tax deferment through the depreciation is if you do two things. You in residential, I'm sure, utilize it's income producing. So income producing retail, we do a 1031 exchange. You flip it from one like for like. Income producing property, you sell it and put it into income producing property. You park it with the 1031 intermediary exchange person, and then no taxes on the sale proceeds. So you just flip it into, you kick the can down the road of paying that original tax you owed. But you've been making monthly mailbox money. You've been investing that money. That money has been growing over time in equity improvement. So by the time, if you go to an estate planner, a tax vehicle, you're now 1, 2, 3 products down the road. You've used the government's money. Instead of paying your money to Uncle Sam every month or every year, you've used that money and reinvested it. So by the time you pay back the original taxes, you've compounded and compounded. That's like paid for itself. It's free, basically. So it's a way to use the government's rules for your own benefit. And the government wants us to do it because by doing that, we spur on the economy and we buy product that creates jobs. So 100 of us band together, a percentage each, buy a shopping center, and we create hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs that the government gets to tax.
That's beautiful. So the the cost segregation part of it, where you put the things in the different buckets, right? The 5, the 15. Are you taking advantage of the bonus depreciation right now that we're able to take advantage of, or are you more conservative about it and you just accelerate depreciation on the normal schedule?
I take it from minute one. I want depreciation from the get-go. I take it as fast as I can get it because money now means more money in our pocket now is better for us.
Yeah.
Money, the time costs, not having something in your pocket now, there's a cost to not having utilization of it now. So I want as much depreciation as soon as humanly possible because it allows the most amount of cash in my investors' pockets now.
So I don't know if you guys heard that, but you can basically take a tax loss but have income hitting your mailbox. So you're making money, but you're not being taxed on it. It is a powerful tool. So what happens in the future, Dr. Azad, when you have to roll this tax deferment into something else? You mentioned 1031 exchange. So do you sell the shopping center? Do you have a plan to do that, to roll that into a new investment?
So I buy already existing product. I buy Class A, meaning it's recent, say 10 years old, or it's in a really shishi area. And so it has a high cost in product to build it, high cost value to build it, Class A. So I buy that. I like it about 12 years old when I purchase it because I want to see that it actually worked. It makes money. Those tenants are not going anywhere. It's going to be an income generating producer for my investors. Okay, we buy it, we hold it. If it's an insurance company, if it's a bank, 5-year, 7-year notes. If it's 50 million, if it's 35 million or lower a loan, bank or insurance company, 5 or 7 years. If it's 50 million and up, most single banks have a hard time taking on that much of a loan. Okay, so the last one I just bought was 116 million. Not huge, but yeah, so we had to get 46 million down cash because we have about 35% down now. And I like to park a lot, probably about 20 million in escrow from the get-go to be ready for those, I had 1.1 million square feet of flat roofing, right? That's a lot of roofing. So I better be ready for
of roofing.
I had 28 big bucks tenants, and real estate's a pay-to-play game. So I better have some tenant improvement, build-out money, and leasing commission money ready to go.
Yeah.
So when I do a $94 million loan with Starwood Mortgage, like I just did last month, I need to tie it to something bigger than just one single bank. So they do what's called a pool. And you batch companies together that buy portions of the loan.
Okay.
So it's called a commercial mortgage-backed security loan.
Yep.
The security is a 10-year treasury note. So depending upon what we go into, that's kind of how we finance it. And that really also helps with why I want to take the depreciation as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to write off as much of that as possible, as soon as possible.
Makes
so
sense.
when we flip out of it, worst case scenario, 10 years, we park it. Federal government allows you to do a 1031 exchange, like kind for like kind, income producing for income producing. You're not allowed to touch the cash when you sell it. If you park it with an intermediary exchange person, you get basically 45 days to delineate up to 5 properties that are income producing that you want to purchase. Mm-hmm. You then have to, within 6 months, purchase one of those delineated properties.
Okay.
If you do so, no taxes on any of the sales proceeds.
So how I guess easy is it? That's a strict timeline. Is it easy to deploy money that fast, to find good quality assets and spend the money?
You got to plan ahead.
Yeah.
So I have an acquisitions team. I have a 3-story Victorian house in the oldest area in Houston, Heights Boulevard.
Nice.
My first floor is all acquisitions, dispositions, and asset management
Cool.
and investor relations. The second floor is all operations, leasing, property management, a full in-house accounting. The third floor is we have some teaching areas up there. We do a lot of in-house teaching of our clients and our investors and things like that. So yes, we plan about a year ahead. I know in commercial mortgage-backed security loan, there's something called a defeasance fee, meaning there's an early payoff penalty.
Yep.
That can cost me millions of dollars. I know if I'm going to I've been very blessed. In 28 years, our average return per year, every year has been 31%.
Amazing.
Every single year, no taxes.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
We've been very blessed. So that's why we've got 510 investors now. So because they want to utilize what the government is giving every American an opportunity to do through depreciation, tax deferment. You kick the can down the road a little bit while you're making monthly mailbox money, and you don't have to pay taxes on it if you do it correctly and you plan for it.
Yep.
So it's really important to plan ahead and to dovetail it.
That makes sense.
And we look for that needle in a haystack hard. We're a specialist. We're really good at what we do because we do one tiny little thing just again and again and again.
That's food for thought for folks that are looking for somebody to invest in. I mean, you guys plan well in advance, and I bet people who have not been doing this as long are not going to understand how to dovetail those dispositions and acquisitions. Dr. Azad, this has been super helpful. We really appreciate you coming on the show. We've got you booked out for several more shows, so we look forward to visiting with you again in the future. If you guys are looking to invest, Dr. Azad is taking on investors. They have the fund open, 5 Rivers. We're going to hit a commercial break real quick. We'll see you in just a second. Thank you again.
Thank you.
What if this happened to you when you're alone? Or what if it happened here? With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new Care Watch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The Care Watch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. The Care Watch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. Don't wait. Call us to get your Care Watch right now. Operators are standing by.
I have a new guest on the show with us today, Jody Harstein, who is a realtor in the Savannah, Georgia metro area. Jody, first of all, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on board with us. And Jody's got a really interesting experience. Before you, got into the real estate business, you were in the military, worked on helicopters. Your whole family's, military oriented. Husband was in the military for 20 something years. So just out of curiosity, how did you go from working on helicopters to selling real estate?
Thank you, Andrew. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I guess I just decided I needed a job, and my neighbor across the street worked for a HOA management company. So
there you go.
I needed a job. So it started, and it just evolved from there.
I gotcha. Well, look, I've got a lot of questions I want to ask you. Specifically, your specialties in homeowners associations and, helping people sell properties and buy properties in homeowner associations. Before we start, there's been, monumental news in the real estate world over the last week with the National Association of Realtors, settlement basically, which stipulates that commissions are going to be taken off of MLS listings. So unpack that for us, Jody, in the next, 3 or 4 minutes. Tell us, what does that mean for, buyers, sellers, agents, the whole 9 yards?
So what basically has happened, a lot of the things in the settlement are already set up in Georgia, although it forces agents to communicate more clearly with their clients. The listing agreement in Georgia says, here's the commission. I agree to share that commission with the buyer's agent. That's already in place, but the communication just hasn't been there. So also on the buyer side, in the buyer's brokerage agreement, that is also outlined in there that it states in that agreement that all buyers sign is that they agree that if the seller isn't paying the commission, that they are going to pay that commission. There are a few little tweaks that are going to be different. And one is if you put 2.5% on that buyer's agreement and the seller has agreed to pay 3%, you will only collect, as the agent, you only collect that 2.5%.
Interesting.
Which is in your, and is in your agreements, and people aren't necessarily communicating as well with their clients. The fact that it's taking it out of the MLS, I think that really is causing the biggest uproar amongst agents, at least here. And they're going to have to communicate with their agent. And this week earlier, I saw someone said, well, what if you reach out to the agent and the agent says it's 2.5%. And then when you write up the offer, they come back and say that it's only 1.5%. And my question to that is, whatever happened to the ethics and integrity that the National Association of Realtors is upholding us to? Yep. So, I mean, I'm a very big rule follower. And if I tell you that this is what it is, I'm not going to go back on that. And it's just an ethical thing. So
do you see it changing the way that, transactions happen at all? Or do you think it's going to stay pretty much business as usual and the sellers are still going to pay, buyer's agent commissions?
I feel like it's still going to stay the same, because realistically, we're in a world that, I as a buyer don't necessarily have an extra $10,000 to pay my agent.
Right.
So I'm not going to buy a house. And if you're a VA buyer or you're a FHA buyer, you can't finance that amount. You either bring it to the table or you don't buy a house.
Yeah.
So and I'm sure that those details will come out better as time goes on and how we handle those situations, because that's going to put a lot of people out of being able to buy a home. Yep. If sellers are not going to pay, if they're not going to pay commission.
Do you see buyers going direct to sellers agents right through Zillow, connecting with the sellers agent? Do you see that happening more? Do you think that people will still use buyers agents?
Well, if they're going through Zillow, they're doing it anyway. I mean, every listing I've gotten a call from somebody that says, "Hey, I'm interested in your listing."
Yeah.
So I think it happens anyway, and it's our responsibility as a realtor to explain to just the general public that you can do that. You're welcome to do that, but you are losing out on representation.
Yep. It's the biggest transaction in most people's lives is buying a house. So you like to have an expert on your side.
Yes, they need to protect themselves and have accurate information and, have somebody standing up for them that knows the industry and knows the process.
Agreed. Need a professional on your side of the table there when you're, making a big decision, buying a house and spending a lot of money.
Yes.
Jody, we'll move away from that. I, wanted to ask you about, your career and your expertise, but you're obviously an expert in the business. So this is big news. So thanks for unpacking that for us. But in terms of the HOAs, that's a very interesting world of real estate that there's a lot of people when they're, getting into I mean, people have bought a house one or two times their whole life. HOAs are a unique animal 100%. So tell us about, how did you start specializing in that? What's the difference in buying in an HOA? How do you help? I mean, there's a lot of questions I have about this, but
Right.
I'll turn it over to you.
When a buyer is considering purchasing an HOA, they need to look at the covenants and see what may or may not fit about that community for them. If you want to look at the ARC, if there's a architectural committee of any sort, because if you want to enclose your patio, you're probably going to need for permission for that. If you want to paint your front door, your house, or anything like that. If you want to re-landscape, most of the time landscaping is not going to get denied. However, you still have to apply for permission on those kinds of things. Other things that you're going to look for are going to be things like, I had a client that had a commercial vehicle that they brought home, and we looked at every set of covenants for a home that they were looking at to make sure that that vehicle was allowed to be parked in the driveway, because a lot of communities don't allow that. You also, for example, whatever fits your lifestyle. If you are a car collector, or, you like to tinker on cars, an HOA is probably not appropriate for you.
Yep. What about recreational vehicles, boats? I mean, I'm assuming you can't bring any of that stuff home.
Most of the time you can't. A lot of HOAs, if you're packing out for the weekend, they'll let you park in front of your house or bring your boat home after you've been out all weekend and clean it up. But generally, it's not allowed to be stored there, or it has to be in the backyard, or, there are certain stipulations, and all of that stuff is going to be in the covenants.
Jody, the valuation process when you're getting an appraisal for a home that's in an HOA, do they run similar in comps to a house that's not in an HOA down the street? Everything else similar, or do you get more value being HOA or less? How does that work?
An appraiser really does want to find, when they're comparing to come up with the value of a home, they really want to find another home that's also in an HOA. It does give a little bit different, yes, you're paying for what you have, but those are amenities you have. It's kind of like saying you have a pool in the backyard. A house with a pool in the backyard has a different valuation than a house that does not have a pool.
Right.
In that. So they want to compare as like as they possibly can. So an HOA does carry a little weight.
Okay. So it's important, I guess, if somebody's buying a home, is the appraisal just going to be what it is, or is there value in like really examining that to make sure they got the right value? How do you suggest that your buyers look at the appraisal, I guess, and dig into the numbers?
Sometimes, I wouldn't recommend a buyer do it. I actually just had a transaction that the appraisal was very low compared to what the offer was. And, I live the life, something is worth what someone is willing to pay for it.
Yep.
But it doesn't work that way very well with an appraiser.
Yeah.
He says, you have to prove to me that it is worth this. So, when you're pricing a home as a listing agent, you have to be very careful and very, pay attention to what is being sold similar in the area and so forth. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. I've had a transaction where the appraiser came in and did not even value the home at the value that the tax assessor's office has it, which is always low compared to what the real actual value is of the house. So, and my sellers were moving from that area, so they really didn't have much choice. It was sell the house for what the appraiser says, or don't sell your house.
Man, that's a brutal position to be in, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times they want, there's negotiation in there if the home doesn't appraise for the offer. If you're the buyer and you got $15,000 extra that you're not already calculating in your closing costs, and you can afford to pay more for the house, great. The seller can choose not to sell, but there is the negotiation in there as well on both sides of the house.
Well, Jody, look, thanks again for coming on the show. I mean, we appreciate your expertise and helping talk us through the NAR Commission lawsuit a little bit there in the beginning. I'm sure there's going to be much more to talk about as that thing unfolds. But as we get closer to the July deadline for all that. But we'll see you again on the show. Thanks again for joining us, and we're going to be right back, everybody. Take a quick break. See you in just a second.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
All right, everybody. Thanks again for jumping in and watching the show. We're signing out for this week. As always, we're on the Now Media Network at 5 o'clock Central